Welcome to Compliance Chronicles, where we learn from professionals shaping the world of compliance. I'm your host, Liisa Thomas, outside privacy and compliance counsel, an adjunct professor at Northwestern Law School, and a lifelong learner of organizational change. From personal journeys to hard-earned lessons, these are the chronicles that inspire and guide. Let's dive in. I am thrilled to be joined this time by Keikoh Park, who is a strategic legal and compliance leader who's had a variety of roles in compliance, including most recently at CBRE, where she was the vice president and head of ethics and compliance of the Global Program Office. But you've had other roles as well in compliance, including at JLL. And I am thrilled, Keikoh, that you are here in this platform. You've already come and shared so many wonderful insights with students at the Northwestern compliance class. So I'm really excited to bring this conversation to a broader audience. The very first question that I wanted to ask you is if you could share a little bit about your journey in compliance and into this field. Why, what inspired you? What got you hooked into this world?
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you. So I started my legal career as a commercial transactions attorney. I was working on global outsourcing agreements as well as multinational preferred supplier agreements. And I was working for Jones Lang LaSalle, or JLL, the global commercial real estate company. So when I would negotiate these global agreements, I would see pages and pages of compliance requirements. So when you're managing a corporate client's global real estate portfolio, maybe 20, 30, 40 buildings over 10 countries, 20 countries, 30 different countries, and you're managing their facilities, you're hiring the service providers and the maintenance staff and the crews to maintain these buildings, you start to see all sorts of compliance requirements. And I became really concerned about how are we complying with all these contractual obligations? How are we making sure that in all these different countries we're operating in, that we're really doing what we say we're doing for the client? And so when the company first named a global chief compliance officer for the first time and started to build out a team, I immediately raised my hand and said, I'm interested in this. I'm really interested in cross-border international regulatory compliance, and I want to learn more. And I said, I know I'm not a compliance lawyer. I'm new to this. My background is in commercial transactions, but this is something that I'm really interested in, and I'd love to learn and grow. And so people originally thought I was crazy to move from a commercial transactions, kind of a glamorous role, to a more, what some people thought was mundane compliance role. But I actually love compliance, and I've really loved the work that I've done in the space. And so I think at the end of the day, it was a really great move for me to follow those interests and my areas of concern and areas that I thought were really important for the company. So it's been really fulfilling work. There's always going to be, there are new laws, there are new regulations, and even if it's the same laws and regulations, sometimes with an administration change, enforcement can change, approaches to enforcement or the hot topics of the day can change. And so to me, there's always something new. There's always something new to analyze, a new policy or old policies and procedures that you need to update, or new risks that occur. And so to me, it feels closer to the business and closer to operations. And that's been really interesting for me.
What was, as you were going through sort of that shift, what was one of the hardest parts about it?
So I would say one of the things that makes compliance or international cross-border compliance so interesting is also what makes it challenging, because different countries and different jurisdictions may approach the same topic very differently. So for example, data privacy, the European Union has the GDPR. After the GDPR, many other countries had their own versions of data privacy laws, but they're different. So Canada is a little bit different from Latin America, and that's also a little bit different from how Asia handles it. And so I think in any global organization, that the cultural differences and the nuances of how regulations are worded and also how they're enforced, that can be very challenging, but I think that that's also where it's very rewarding. And it's never a one size fits all. And so you always have to consider these different perspectives. And it's a learning process, but I also think it's really interesting and invigorating. So the change management part is really key. I have experienced a few initial rollouts or initiatives and projects where we didn't have very good change management, and the adoption and the bringing your stakeholders along, that was kind of missing. And I think that's definitely a key ingredient in the success. And when you talk about different jurisdictions and different countries handling a certain topic in different ways, that's where that communication and relationship building muscle really comes into play. And so there's the active listening to make sure you're understanding what the challenges are in Germany or in France or in Hong Kong that are different from the US. Because in compliance, it's not just about, I used to say the difference between legal counsel in a company versus a compliance officer is, as a legal counsel, you just give the advice. Well, here's what the law says. Here's what you should do. Go and do it. Right? In compliance, we have to be a little more hands-on. We have to help write the policies that ensure that the company, complies with that law. And then after we write the policies, we have to help the business create procedures around it. We have to review what the business is doing. We work with internal audit when internal audit does the checks and the audits, but at the same time, we have to be doing proactively risk assessments to get ahead of the risks and see what, from a corporate infrastructure perspective, what do we need to put in place in terms of guardrails and making sure people adhere to the law and comply with the law. But all of that comes with, bringing stakeholders on board, making sure that there is adoption in the business and in the operations, making sure that you're not being overly prescriptive or making a 10-step process with 5 different forms when one form and maybe 5 key questions would do to get to the heart of the issue and to get the business to comply with something. So all of that, I think, comes into play there. And I think that's what makes compliance so interesting to me.
So one of the things that people who are listening might be thinking about is, what have you learned and what can they piggyback on that is a key lesson or a few key sort of takeaways that can make a compliance program or you as a compliance professional successful in your career?
So I would come back to that relationship building muscle. When you're the compliance department and someone has never met you and someone doesn't know who you are or what you do, and you come in there saying, you must do this, and you dictate something, people are a little bit reluctant or they're, suspicious of your motivation, or they may just be unfamiliar with you, right? But if you have a broad network within your organization and you've reached out and you've met people ahead of time and they know who you are, they know what you do, or maybe there was a issue or a compliance problem that you helped them solve a year ago, or you've met them in different meetings. And then when you come to them with an initiative or with a new policy that you need to roll out, then they're much more receptive to the message and they're much more willing to come together and work with you and cooperate and collaborate on a solution together, right? And so building that goodwill up front so that you're not coming in new as the, police officer, kind of getting people in trouble. I would say, that's something that I try to do in compliance, just to, you make the message easier for people to swallow, but also get people on board and collaborating and cooperating with you. don't be afraid of the new things, and don't be afraid of lateral moves. Because when I shifted from commercial transactions into compliance, like I said, people thought I was a little bit crazy, but also I was already senior counsel within the commercial transactions team. And the job that I raised my hand for was initially scoped as a compliance manager job. So I don't know many people who would be willing to go from a senior counsel title to a compliance manager title. But once I, applied for the job, and really, I was the first hire for the new global chief compliance officer. And I told her, look, I'm new to compliance, and that's why I'm willing to take a more junior role, but I want to learn. And also, here's what I bring to the table. I understand the business. I understand our contracts. I understand what our clients are looking for us to do. And so this is, an area of interest for me, and I really want to help you build out a great program. And that's how I got the job. And eventually, the role was retitled to a global compliance counsel position, and I got a promotion to an officer title within that role as well. So if there's an area of interest for you, go for it. Show the value you bring, but also why you're interested. And I think it can lead to advancement opportunities, even if the immediate role doesn't seem like a step up on the corporate ladder.
All right. So constantly learning, be flexible, and strong relationships.
Yes.
All right. Yeah. Okay, Keikoh, you have given us a lot to think about. Thank you.
Thank you so much. This is so much fun. Thanks for having me.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of Compliance Chronicles, where we look for guidance and inspiration from the personal journeys of compliance professionals.